I was thinking about what I could make for D&D that would be very helpful for people. And I think what I can make is a step-by-step process to starting a game. What do I mean when I say step-by-step process? So I don't want to go into an absurd level of detail, and I think one of the things I will repeatedly preach about in this series is how little you need to do to actually run your game in a homebrew world from scratch. And to demonstrate that, I think that I'm going to start by, let's create a setting right now. Let's do it. We're going to create a setting right now. And by the end of this video, and look at the timestamps, because I guarantee it's not very long, we're going to have a setting done. Yeah, I know. Trust me, it's true. Here's the things that you need for a setting. You need a name. You need... I do think it's important at the very early stages to determine if you're going to have normal moons or weird moons. It's very important. Other than that, normal suns or weird suns. And last but not least, what makes my setting interesting? The other two are kind of jokes. This is the real one. What makes your setting interesting, right? I don't think you need to sit here and come up with some deep, philosophical, complex answer to this. It should be a trope you like. A trope that is exciting to you. If you just want a kitchen sink fantasy setting, then Exandria exists, Faerun exists, the Forgotten Realms, they exist. Eberron exists, and it's got like a steampunk angle, so, these settings already exist. So when you go to create your own setting, what you're saying is, I want to do something very specific. And so the question you should ask yourself is, what makes my setting interesting? So for my homebrew setting, Shambhala, the thing that made my setting interesting was that what I had in my mind originally was that humans were almost extinct after a super epic and deadly war. And I actually don't think that worked out. I don't think it was enough of a basic, weird, quirky thing to base a setting around. I actually think it should just be even more simple and even more quirky. And so, here's my example, okay? My example for this is floating skylands. That's it. That's my setting. Floating skylands. So giant continent-sized chunks of floating rock floating over a ruined world. So floating skylands drifting over a ruined world. Immediately, it's evocative. It starts getting your mind going. What is life like on a floating island? What are the things that you wouldn't be able to live without that aren't on a floating island that you're going to have to explain away? What are the things, why is the world ruined? But don't start answering these questions. Seriously, take it easy. Take a breath. Relax. This is your setting. We're going to create a name for it. And I'm going to name it, again, do not overthink it. Just relax. Just let it go. For me, when I'm coming up with like world sounds and things like that, I just want something that sounds plausible and believable, that has like an interesting sound to it. So like Arcadia, I believe is it's a history place. It's one of the continents in my setting. Diced is a continent in my setting. These things that kind of sound like names. So I think for your world, you just want something that like Earth, right? Something simple, easy. Adron. The world of Adron. There we go, we're done. We got the world of Adron. How many normal moons or weird moons? You know what? We're going to go with normal moons. Normal moons, but 2 suns. A binary star system. We've just decided. Okay, at this point, here's what I challenge you to do. Write 3 pitches for campaigns for your players. I know what you're thinking. Jay, I know nothing about my setting except for that it's floating skylands and it's called a Droon. What the hell am I supposed to, what the hell am I supposed to make a pitch out of? But that's the thing. I don't think it's useful, and I don't think it's wise to try and sit here and develop an entire world right now. I don't think it's helpful. I just don't think that most people operate in that way. Maybe, and if you do operate in that way, you'll start playing in a year or 6 months. I'm going to get you in the DM's chair a lot sooner than that. So I'm challenging you right now. 3 pitches. What is a pitch? It is a short, paragraph-long description of a campaign premise. They should be different, and they should each all cater to a different play style, right? Okay, so these are the 6 basic types of campaign pitches that I like to write. Journey just means an adventure that starts with a premise that you're in X location and you need to travel to Y location. That's a journey. Dungeon crawl is an adventure where you need to go and explore some sort of dungeon for some specific reason. A city campaign has you in a location doing something. Some reason ties you to a specific location, and that location is going to be very important. Base building campaigns are campaigns where you have inherited or gained access to some torn down location, and you have to build it up against some external threat or for some particular reason. A horror campaign, of course, like Curse of Strahd or something like that, where you go into a spooky, dark land and there's a moody atmosphere and so on and so forth. And then finally, questers. Questers are a group of people given a very specific mission to accomplish. Each of these is going to appeal to different sorts of players, and each of these is going to appeal to different sorts of DMs. For example, I almost never run horror. It's not really my type, and there are other genres that aren't on this list because I wouldn't even think to run them. These are the sort of basic types of campaigns that I like to run. So I'm going to pick 3 of these, and then we'll pick up from there. Okay, I've chosen Dungeon Crawl, Base Building, and City Campaign. The main reason for this is a journey campaign requires you to know a lot about your world already, because you're obviously going to be traveling through a great deal of it on this journey. And since we don't have a world yet, that's not really suited for us right now. What we want are adventures that encourage us to build out the world. So I think a city campaign is great because it takes place in one location. So we only have to worry about developing one location. Base building campaign, very similar. We are building up a location. Not only that, but because we are building up a location, this location that we build up can then become an important location in later campaigns in the setting. You're effectively adding a player-generated space to your setting right from the beginning. Pretty cool, I think, because it really sets the tone and vibe of your world and you're letting the players set the tone and vibe of your world. What kind of world are they going to make in your new setting? Very interesting. And then finally, we have a dungeon crawl campaign. A dungeon crawl campaign is great because it doesn't require you to know much about the world outside. You have a starting location that you begin in, you go down into the dungeon, you spend a significant amount of time in that dungeon, and as you're exploring that dungeon, you can begin to seed bits of lore about your world as you're building it out, right? Because they're going to be spending several weeks in the dungeon, you have a lot of time to start building out the world above and figuring out what's going on in the region. But we'll get to that later. So these are my 3 campaign ideas. I'm now going to expand them into simple pitches. Okay, so I've now taken the time to write out 3 campaign pitches, and here they are. Depths of Ardoon. A mysterious stone structure has risen from the earth nearby to a small town. This structure has begun to spill out monstrosities and undead into the countryside. You've been tasked with investigating it and looking for a way to seal it off. Classic dungeon crawler. And please take note, doesn't require you to know anything about the setting. Realms of Ardoon. The great kingdom of Paldorn fell to invaders 200 years ago, but the neighboring kingdom of Glintmore has recently driven out the last of the invaders. They've tracked your family down as the last surviving rightful heirs to this local throne. They've offered you their support in raising Paldorn back from the ashes. But what do they get out of it? Again, this is a classic base building campaign. You've inherited a plot of land in the middle of a danger-infested forest. What do? It does have the unique aspect of requiring the players to be family, although when you actually get into character creation, you might say, well, maybe you're sent from Glintmore to oversee the project, and that might introduce some interesting party dynamics, or maybe you're a bodyguard of the family. There's some stuff that you can do there, but I also think that it's cool to have a party of, like, family members. I think that that's neat. And then finally, Dreams of Ardoon. In the city of towers, people are said to sleep with one eye open. Surprising, then, that suddenly people are finding themselves unable to wake up. Its vast, sprawling streets are filled with rumors and worries, but this quiet fear turns into a waking nightmare when the ruler of the city is announced to have slipped into an unending slumber. Factions across the city now begin to move, seeking to take advantage of this lapse in leadership. And what is the source of this sleeping curse? So here you go again. Very classic city campaign premise, like a city campaign adventure. People are going to sleep for some reason. The leader of the city's gone to sleep for some reason. Getting to the bottom of that mystery, as well as avoiding all the power play politics within the city, is going to prove interesting. And again, doesn't really require you to know much about your setting. You're obviously establishing that cities exist, and that's not nothing. That does have some implications, but it's stuff that you can work with. It's stuff that you can build on. So now that you have these 3 campaign pitches, and yours are different than mine, I'm sure, for your campaign is different than mine. But now that you have these 3 campaign pitches, I challenge you, send it to your players. I know, I don't have a setting yet, but what am I supposed to do? Well, we'll get to that in the next one. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to post this to YouTube, and in the comments, I'd like you to rank these 3 campaigns. I'd like you to pick the number 1 most favorite, the number 2 most favorite, and the number 3 most favorite. This is how I actually do things. I send it to my players, I have them rank the campaigns in their order of preference. I tally up the votes, and then based on the votes, I will develop that little paragraph into a full pitch document. And that's what we'll go over next time. Developing a pitch document, and again, what do you actually need to do to play the game? But I hope that this encourages you and makes you feel empowered to actually start running games, because I really do think it's just this simple. I really do think, like, it may seem wild, but at this point we really could just about start playing, and I'll show you that in the next episode. Leave a comment below ranking these in order so that I know which one to develop into a campaign pitch document. Until next time, thank you very much. Goodbye.